What's up, YouTube? Welcome to the video. So, the video is about normalization, and at the end of the video, you will have a good understanding of what is normalization and how can you normalize a table in first normal form, second normal form, and the third normal form. So, let us begin. So, normalization is a database design technique that reduces data redundancy. So, it does not completely remove the redundancy, but the more normalized the table is, the less the data redundancy is. And it divides the larger table into smaller ones. And the purpose of using normalization is to eliminate the repetitive data. So, that is what redundancy means, and to store the data logically. It eliminates anomalies such as repetition, insertion, update, and deletion. So, let's find out what they are. So, the first one is repetition anomaly, and you can see that the project name, project ID, grade, and salary are repeated. Here is the salary, and here is this salary which is being repeated. The grade is also being repeated, and the project ID and the project name are also being repeated. So, in order to remove this anomaly, we will apply normalization. But before that, let's see the examples of other anomalies. So, this is insertion anomaly. Adding a new employee will lead to null columns. So, we are adding a new employee, but the new employee will not be assigned to a project immediately. So, its column will be null, and leaving null columns can cause problems. So, if you run a query, these null columns can cause problems. And now, here is the deletion anomaly. So, let's say Codeverse is no longer working on Project Magnum Pro. So, the record should be deleted. This record is about to get deleted. But the problem is, deleting the record will also delete the personal data of the employee Codeverse. So we don't have another record of Codeverse. So we are deleting this project information, but its rest of the information will also get deleted. So that's why this is a problem. The last one is update anomaly. Let's say employee Raza is given a raise in salary. Now all records containing Raza's data must be updated. So we have two records. Raza is working on two of the projects. So both of the records will get updated. And let's suppose for some reason this record does not get updated. Now we will have two records of Raza having different salaries. So this update anomaly is also a big problem. So let us look at what is a primary and foreign key. We have a video regarding this topic, but let's just repeat it in an instant. So it is a constraint which is applied on a column, and the column should uniquely identify a row. Just like a CNIC number uniquely identifies a citizen. No matter how many citizens have same name or data, CNIC will still uniquely identifies them. So example of a primary key is this. If this employee ID have been made the primary key of this table, then we are adding employees. But if we try to add an employee with the same employee ID which is inserted before, it will give an error. Now the foreign key constraint. It is applied on column which establishes a connection between tables. Foreign key should be a primary key in another table by SQL standard. So this is a requirement that the foreign key should be a primary key in another table, and it enforces referential integrity by preventing values that aren't found in the related table's primary key. So let's just look at the example. So we have an employee table, and here the primary key is the employee ID. We have a second table which is the project table, and it has a project ID as the primary key. But how can we tell that employee ID, which employee is working on which project? So for that, we have another table which shows that which employee is working on which project. And both of these columns are foreign keys. So this employee ID actually belongs to its original table, which is the employee table. And this project ID column is also linked to its original table, which is project ID. So if I try to add employee 550 to project ID 124, so it will give an error. The new employee is not present in the original table where the primary key is located. So we don't have an employee with the employee ID 550. So this record cannot be added. Similarly, if we try to add a project 130, we do not have a project 130. So we cannot add 130 project ID here. So this is what foreign key does. It enforces a rule that this employee ID is originally belonging to this table. So the only data that this table can hold is the data which is inserted into this original table. So let's move on to the normal forms. So the first normal form is about removing duplicate data. So each table cell should contain a single value, and each row needs to be unique. So what does this means? Each table cell should only contain one value, not like this record, which contains two of the phone numbers. So this is a violation of the first normal form, and each row needs to be unique. This is fulfilled because the employee ID in each record is different, and it is enough for us to say that each record is unique. So each row is unique. So if we want to make this table into first normal form, we can add another record, and both of the records have different phone numbers. So even now we have two records with the same employee ID and the same project ID. The phone numbers in both of the records are different. So we can say that this table is now in first normal form. So the second normal form is about removing redundant data so that each non-key attribute is dependent only on the primary key. This means that non-key attribute is a column that is not a primary key and that is not a foreign key. So it is not any kind of key. So it is called non-key attribute, or we can say columns should only depend on the primary key. And the requirements of second normal form are it should be already in the first normal form, and this should not have any kind of partial dependency. We need to learn that what are partial dependency. To fulfill requirements of this normal form, we must divide the table until there is no partial dependency left. Partial dependency means that there are more than one column which can be a potential primary key, and they are called candidate key. So any column which has the potential to become a primary key is called a candidate key. Here in this table, we have employee ID which can be a primary key, and this project ID can also be a primary key. And talking about this table which have project and employee information, these two will combine form a composite primary key which will make the all the records unique. So these both are candidate key, which means that they have the potential to become primary keys. Now there is some column that depends partially on the candidate key and not all the members of the candidate key. So the partial dependency is that all of the non-key attributes or all of the non-key members like this project name, employee name, phone number, if they are dependent on only one of the candidate key, then we have partial dependency, which we need to remove in order to get the second normal form. If we talk about the project name, it is only dependent on the second candidate key, which is this. So there we have a partial dependency. If we talk about the employee name, it is only dependent on the first candidate key, which is this. So there we have our second partial dependency. And this table is not in the second normal form. To make it achieve the second normal form, it should be in first normal form, and we have to remove the partial dependency. So to do that, we can create separate table for the employee and separate table for the project. So now the employee ID, the name is only dependent on the ID, and the grade and salary are also dependent on employee ID. Each of these columns only belong to one candidate key, so the partial dependency is resolved. And this project name, this also depend on only one candidate key which is present. So the partial dependency is now resolved. This table is not needed for the current example, but I am just showing you that we can have another table which can tell that which employee is working on which project. And another point to note that whenever there is a need to show the combined result of these tables, we will use joins to make our joint table. So we will use all three tables to tell that which employee is working on which table, and the join will create a temporary table, a temporary result to show the user that which employee is working on which table. Now let us move on to the third normal form. So it says that every column should only depend on the primary key. So the tables should be in second normal form, and they should not have any transitive dependencies. So the third normal form revolves around the transitive dependency. So we have to understand this. To fulfill the requirements of the third normal form, we may have to further divide the tables until there is no transitive dependency left. So this is a transitive dependency. When a non-key attribute determines another non-key attribute. So this is a employee table, and this department does not have to do anything with this employee table. So this department ID. So we have an employee which works on department 1 and its department name is this. But the problem is that this department ID is linked with this department name, which is wrong because both of these columns are non-key attributes, so they are not the primary keys. But one column is dependent on the other one. So this is a transitive dependency. So this was the example that we are using from the start. Converted it into first normal form, then we converted it to the second normal form. Now we have to achieve the third normal form. Should not have any transitive dependencies. So, so all of these columns do belong to the employee ID, but there is a problem. The transitive dependency is that this grade A means the salary would be this much. So anywhere the grade A is written, the same salary is written. And where the grade B is written, there is this salary. So the salary is dependent on grade, and these both are non-key attributes. So both of them are not the primary keys. So this is a transitive dependency that a non-key attribute is dependent on the other non-key attribute. So we have to remove this. So the first table, the second, the third, and now we have another table which is called the grade table. And we have the grades all over here. And in the employee table, we are saying that Raza is grade A and Hassan is grade A. If we combine both of these table, then we will get that what is the salary of Raza and Hassan. Both of their salary will be this much. So now you can see that almost all the redundant data is removed and we have achieved the third normal form. So this is how normalization works. So this is all for the video. If you like it, give it a thumbs up and do subscribe to the channel. See you next time.